when you happened upon these siblings, it was during a rare outing that they were having out in the city, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was actually not one of the rare outings. It was once they started going out on their own. So it was like about the first week they started going out on their own. I saw them on the street and I just ran after them. They're very intriguing. They had this long hair and these outfits, and I met up with them and I asked them where they're from, and I asked them if they're all brothers, and they said yes. And they asked me what I did for a living, and I said I'm a filmmaker, and they got really excited. They said, "Oh, we're interested in getting into the business of filmmaking," and that's really how it started. It was really a friendship that, I was showing them cameras and, like going over how scripts work and all that stuff that I, as a filmmaker knew about. But I always knew that I wanted to do something with them. I wasn't sure what it's going to be, but I just had this, inclination that there's something there. And eventually, I asked them if, we were filming around when we meet up, and I asked them, eventually I was like, I'd love to do a documentary on you guys, and they were like, us? Why us? And that's really kind of how it started, and eventually they, started to reveal their backstory to me, and I was like, oh, I guess maybe that was a good idea.
That's actually part of the reason why I asked that question when you first happened upon them, because I guess for you as a documentary filmmaker, your eyes are always peeled for an interesting subject, and I guess that's what drew you to them.
Yeah, for me as a filmmaker, it's I start with my characters first, and then I build the story around the characters. So just I do fiction as well, so that's usually how it starts. And with this, that's completely how I did it. I really just, I thought they were fascinating people, and they, there's something about them that, they just came alive on camera, and then the story around them was, built later on.
Well, you would think that someone or someone who had gone through the experience that they had with very little interaction with the outside world, you would think that they would naturally, once they go out in the world, they would be guarded. So I'm wondering, was there a process in gaining their trust?
The thing is that I think they were guarded, but they had this really strong ambition to become filmmakers. So when I met them, it was just really I think they said they trusted me because I was a filmmaker, which is silly, but trust me, you're a documentary filmmaker, not usually the best people trust, but I think that I know I had good intentions and stuff, and I think we met for a reason. But it was just exciting for them to be out on their own, and once the facade of the scary, frightening world outside was, that once that bubble was burst and they realized that outside isn't scary, that's when they started to really just go out and just rebel and just say I told you so, parents, the outside isn't so bad.
Yeah, and that's what's a big part of what's so incredibly moving about the movie is that you get to see them experience what could be their full potential, and that's very inspiring. That's one of the most inspiring aspects of the film for me, and I'm sure that was. This is another thing that interests me about the process of documentary filmmaking, because when you set out to make a film in the documentary form, you could have in mind one version of the film, but just through the process of observing, can become something entirely different. And I'm wondering, in that process of assembling this movie, which you did over many years, several years, how did the film kind of evolve for you that was in a way that was most surprising?
Oh, yeah. when I started the film, I was thinking that it was going to be almost like American movie. Have you seen that documentary? Where it's like these
Sure.
kids, these quirkies making a film together, who are, like little like cinephiles. That kind of like was like my idea. I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a sweet little film about these kids that want to make things. But as time went by, like I really, there was a deeper story to uncover, and it became its own thing. And then it really taught me about like the idea that you can't control a documentary film. You just got to let it be what it is. And we were very lucky to have worked with Anat Sidi, who was a brilliant documentary editor, and she helped us realize the story and and really pull out the emotion and really find out what the film is about.
I think it's great what you just said about not imposing your own morality or point of view on it, but letting it come from the subjects themselves. Because I would think, especially when you're dealing with a subject as unusual as this, that might be a particular challenge. Not to impose your own kind of view of why would these kids be put through this for that many years. I mean, do you find in general as a documentary filmmaker that's a big challenge, not to impose yourself necessarily into the activities you're recording?
No. I think that no. I don't. I kind of like, throughout this process, I realized that I kind of really don't like when filmmakers do that. I think that the subject stories are more interesting than the relationship between the director and the subject. And I'm only saying that because throughout my process, I at first thought that the story was about me meeting these kids, and that was totally wrong, because that wasn't the interesting story. And it's a story that we can speak about now and talk about how it came to be, but the interesting story is them, their experience, and I think that's like what really comes out of this film and why this film works.
I'm so glad you said that, because this is something we talk a lot about on the show, is that there's a troubling trend in documentary filmmaking where the filmmaker kind of puts themselves center stage, and is your film about you, or is it about the subject? And so that's but at the same time, for this, your connection to that family and those siblings was essential in making this work. Did you feel that there was a boundary there, just in terms of you had a camera in front of you and they couldn't be as intimate with you as they could without that camera?
No, I always had a camera, so it was there from day one. And I think at first it was more casual. Like, it was like, okay, let's make this, let's just film around and see what can come out of this. And then when we made the decision to make a film, I think that I started to really step back more. But I was able to really. There was a lot going on at that point. Like the boys were starting to get jobs and they go out in the world more and do things, and so I was able to just follow things and step back more and just let it happen.
And I would assume that their father has seen the finished film. Is he pleased with it? Is he happy with it?
Yeah, he said he was surprised that his children felt that way about him. He didn't know. He felt it was educational, and he felt like it was a beautiful film that was honest and told the story of their family in a fair way.
I just have two more quick questions for you. Your premiere at Sundance, where you won the big prize at Sundance.
Yeah. That
must have been not only an out-of-body experience for you, but certainly for the kids. This is a major kind of culture shock for anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. It was It was really wild. I mean, me going into like a million press appointments every day, and them, they didn't do any press. We didn't make them do any press at Sundance. It was really just about like them like having fun and like being able to do their thing. So they went to movies and met some of their favorite stars, and it was like a village of filmmakers. It's what they've always dreamed of. For me, it was a lot to deal with. But as time went by, like as a year went by, and like we're on tour for like 9 months now. Like 2 of the boys are in Rome right now. They're going to Bulgaria next week. Like there's a lot. There's still stuff happening. It's almost been a year of this. But by the time Tribeca came, we got used to it, and we're like, okay, it's happening. Let's just it really just kind of opened up, and we just like got in a good groove.
Now that they've gotten a taste of their own identity in the film world, do they still have the same passion or thirst to be a part of filmmaking now?
Yeah, I mean they all have their different opinions. Like Govinda, he's an aspiring cinematographer. Mukunda he's a director. He has an art show next week at Deitch Gallery in New York City. Bhagavan is more into like theater and dance and performance, and he's also a yoga teacher. And Narayan is more into activism, but he's he's also interested in programming, and the 2 youngest ones are more into music.
And it's when you even on narrative films, when you're on a narrative film for 3 to 6 months, and you become such a tight knit group, and when you disband after the project's over, you kind of feel like you're missing your family, but then you go off to another project and make another family. It's a very odd kind of existence. But for you, spending however much time, something like 4 years with this family, I would think that the process of this project coming to a close had to have been particularly profound for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, finishing this film was, I mean, it's one of those things where you feel like it's never going to end. And you'll never finish it, and you'll never make it. And once we got Anat Sigi, our editor, on board, that's when I felt really confident that we were going to make a great film. Because it took a while to find the right editor. So, and then you finish it, and it's like a child having a baby, and then it felt very like strange to put out into the world, because it felt so close to me, and it was I felt very intimate with it, and then all of a sudden the world has it. It was wild.
That's true, and that kind of mirrors the lives of the siblings as well. I mean, they've gone out into the world themselves, and it's a beautiful, fascinating movie, and thank you so much for making it, and thanks so much for talking to me about it.
Absolutely.